Unlike in the US, where firm handshakes are a common way of greeting, in China, they are not. In China, the common form of greeting is a bow or nod, or even just a smile. Although many travel guides say that handshakes in China are usually very weak, Mark Salzman did not experience this in his travels. As Salzman arrives in Changsha on the train, a van pulls up and the driver runs to greet Salzman and gives him a long, vigorous handshake. Although Salzman seems to disprove the widely held belief that strong handshakes are uncommon in China, he does find that the guidebooks are right about something. Foreigners in China do tend to attract crowds, especially if they are blonde. Although he is not blonde, Salzman still attracts many people. For example, while sitting on a riverbank, a fisherman, Old Ding, is stunned to see Salzman and brings him back to his house to meet his family. Before I knew it, I had more food than I could eat in a week set in front of me, the men crowding around me, shaking my hands and slapping my shoulders with joy, and the children fighting to get in line to touch me.
Kissing your children, spouses, and loved ones is a normal, everyday occurrence in America. But in China, kissing is not acceptable. In Iron and Silk, Mark Salzman is informed by his students at Hunan Medical College that kissing in public is frowned upon. One of his students tells him, "Here in China, it is very different from your country. People don't kiss here." While traveling in China, one should not expect to see women and men displaying their affection towards each other, while many same-sex friends will walk down streets holding hands. Salzman is also surprised when he learns that parents stop kissing their children after they turn 3. This conversation began because of an argument over actress Natasha Kinski's lips. After Mark's Chinese students watched a movie starring Kinski, they admitted that they did not think she was beautiful. "You can't be serious," says Salzman, disagreeing. The reason they did not think she was beautiful was that her lips were too big. When Mark tells his students that Westerners consider full lips to be very good, they reply, "Good for what?" So if traveling to China, do not be surprised if the people around you are not showing their love for each other.
If you were in China and you saw somebody spit when they met you, wouldn't you think it was disrespectful? Well, it's actually not disrespectful. It's a common greeting and sign of respect. In the beginning of Mark Salzman's memoir of his experience in China, he was greeted by the administrations of the college for which he was working. He wrote, "Comrade Lean suddenly hawked as if clearing his entire chest cavity and sent a lump of mucus behind me onto a brick a few feet away." Because so many people spit, in 2003, a huge epidemic of SARS spread around China and thus spitting became illegal in many places. When Mark Salzman arrived in China, he was expecting a perfect, beautiful China, but to his surprise, it was really trashy and there was mucus all over the sidewalks.
Have you ever walked in a room full of people who have nothing in common with you? People who do not share your beliefs, culture, or way of life? Salzman said, "I first walked into the room, they didn't move or breathe, and no one dared look directly at me. The monitor yelled, 'Stand up!' and they rose with such formality that I did not know how to respond. A Chinese custom when meeting or greeting a stranger is to not make eye contact, to nod one's head and or to bow. Another Chinese custom is greeting a person when he or she returns from a journey. Salzman experiences this when he is greeted after he returns home from his trip. He questioned the woman who came to meet him. "Why are you waiting for me?" She responded, "This was your first trip to China. How shameful it would be if no one greeted you when you came home." This passage differs from the other because in America, a person would also greet a friend or family member when returning home from a journey.
Making eye contact with people in China is not good. In Salzman's travel memoir, Iron and Silk, he shows this gesture clearly to readers during his first day at Hunan Medical College. He said, "I was next introduced to the medical students whom I taught only once a week on Tuesday nights. They were nearly faint with excitement over meeting a foreign teacher. When I first walked into the room, they didn't move or breathe, and no one dared look directly at me." When you go to a musical performance, you usually quietly sit down, but in China this is not the case. In Iron and Silk, Salzman starts to play his cello for a Chinese family, and all they did was walk and talk during his performance. At the end of his performance, he went over to the person who brought him there and mentioned to him that the audience seemed unbelievably rude. and he answered that on the contrary, this showed that they were enjoying it.